Hey everyone, welcome back to the last workshop in a workshop series of the Fusion 360 workshop. This one we'll be going over drafting. Hopefully you've completed the first two workshops, the modeling and the assembly workshop, to get to this point. If you haven't, they'll be linked in the description and they'll also be on our YouTube channel. At this point, your model should look something like this, and you should be ready to, now that we've assembled it, we can do some drawings of it to essentially send off to manufacturers to configure themselves. So yeah, in this workshop series, we'll essentially be, or in this workshop video, we'll be going over the last part of the workshop series, which is drafting. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So before we get to any drafting or anything like that, we want to go ahead and change the material types for these so we can actually tell our manufacturers what we want our materials to be made out of or what we want these parts to be made out of. So in order to do that, we can go into our browser itself and we'll click on our specific components and we'll need to change the physical material of them. And to do that, we just right click and change the physical material. For this body itself, we want them to be 3D printed. So ABS plastic is a good baseline material for that. So we can just set them to ABS, or if there is PLA in here, which I do not think Fusion generally has. Yeah, it doesn't look like it has PLA. So we can go ahead and just use ABS. So we'll just drag ABS onto the training terrain body. And we can go ahead and do, for the cabin, we'll want to do acrylic because it makes sense to kind of get that laser cut. So we'll go ahead and go to acrylic if we can find it. If not, we'll go with plastic transparent, but there should be, there it is, acrylic clear. So we'll drag that onto the cabin body. And then the smokestack itself will get resin printed. So let's do acetyl resin and we can do white just to kind of color match. And then the cabin top, we'll want to get CNC'd. So wood would be a good material for that. So we'll go ahead and choose oak because that's a good material, good hardwood to get CNC'd. And then the last part would be the wheels themselves, which should already be in steel, which is a fine material to cut. So we'll just keep those as steel. And we can go ahead and close that. So now we've changed all the physical appearances as well as the material type of it. So when we build our parts list in our drafting files, that will appear as the material that they'll be using. So we'll go up into our toolbar and change our workspace from design to drawing. And then we'll choose from design. And to create our drawing, we want to do the full assembly. We'll use a create new. We'll do from scratch standard, keep it in ISO because we're still working in millimeters. So we'll just keep that same unit. And then sheet size, for the size of our model itself, probably best to just go with A3 to make sure we can get all the views. So we'll go ahead and select OK. And it will bring us into the modeling part or the drafting part of the software. And before we place anything, we're going to want to go ahead and create a couple of sheets. So we want sheets for our body. We need a sheet for our cabin itself. We need one for the cabin top. We need one for the smokestack. And we need one for the wheels. And then we also want like a title page. So we'll need 6 sheets in total. So first we'll go ahead and add those sheets. So we can just quick add them and they will copy from the same part. And then we'll go back to sheet 1. And this will be our title page. So we can go ahead and get rid of this like label in the corner. And this will give us basically more specifications that we'll add, but that's more useful for actual drafting. This one's more of a title page. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and create a base view, which is what it was asking for before. And base view will ask for a model or a reference, and it'll ask for your model, and you'll just choose model because that should be the only option available to you. And then we'll want to select our orientation. So if we change the orientation, we can see that it changes the look of it here. And for our case, we want it to be similar to our home that we're looking at in the model. So we'll just do northeast isometric. And then we can change the style of it. So we have visible edges, visible with hidden edges. And you won't be able to see this until you click or until you place them. But if we want to see the material type, we need to do shaded in our case. And then for the scale of this, let's go ahead and make it 1.25 to 1, which should be a good size for this sheet, because we'll also need to go ahead and place a parts list in this corner. And then once you find a place to place it, just click, and then it'll lock there. And then for edge visibility, we can just keep it on no or off. Interference edges and thread edges, we don't need to worry about for this one. And then center marks and center lines are also not necessary for now. So we can go ahead and click OK. And then the first thing we'll want to do is we'll want to create a text box so we can label the page itself, and we'll do training train drafting sheets. And then we can go ahead and create, let's do 15 millimeters as the height. So that looks about proper size for it. And then we can just keep everything just like this. And properties, we can change the source, things like that, but we don't need to do that for any of this right now. So we can just go ahead and click enter, or not enter because that just deleted everything. And then we can just, once we're done with that, we can click close and it'll create the drafting sheets or the title page right here. And we can just kind of orient it where we want. Generally, just keep it in the top left. And then we'll go ahead and create our parts list. So to do that, we'll go to the top toolbar and we'll go to tables and we'll do an auto-generated table. And it will give us a couple of different options. So we can do parts list, custom table, bend table, which is more for sheet metal. We can do hole table. We don't need that because we only have one type of hole. And then revision history. We're not doing like design files for any things like that. So we can just keep it to parts list. And then our selected object, which is our train body. And then structure, we can just do first level because we don't have any like sub assemblies or things like that. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and see our full parts list. And if we double click on it, it will allow us to remove different columns. And in our case, we don't really need the description because we don't have a description for any of them. So we can just remove that one to make it more clear. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then we can see that it's doing our train body. We have one of those. We have a train cabin. We have two. We have one of those. Train cabin top. We have one. Train smokestack one. And then it shows that we have 6 wheels. But the way that we had to import our screws made it so they're all individual components, which is fine. That we'll be able to read that it has 7. But for our bubbles, we can go ahead and get rid of some of these because these all indicate specific ones. So we don't need to have the 8 because that's replicating what we already did with 7. So we'll get rid of the 8 and 10. And then you can always drag around your bubbles to make them more apparent what you're specifically pointing at and just to not cross lines or anything. So it's better to kind of make them more apparent and not cross points. So I'm just going to make them more explicit, especially with the body itself. And then the wheel or the screw itself, we can just drag that and then just make it more evident that's clicking on the screw. And once you're happy with the bubble placement, that's all we really need for the initial, essentially, title sheet. So we can go ahead and also get rid of this border as well because we don't need it to do referencing or anything like that, like size-wise. So now the first one that we can get into is we can create a base view of our train body, and we can do a representation of the model. So we'll go ahead and this time we'll do visible with hidden edges. And then it's always best practice to do front face in the beginning and then scale. We can scale it size 1 to 1 probably to fit with the sheet. And then we can keep tangent lines, everything else the same here. And we'll go ahead and click this part itself, click OK. And then for our case, we only want the body. So we're going to go ahead and suppress all of the other parts right now. So we'll only have the body. And that's the way that you kind of have to do it in Fusion 360, but that's fine. It doesn't take too long. So then after we do that, baseline body, we want to do projected views. So we're going to go ahead and drag some views up and down. So we'll do a top view. And then we'll also need to do a side view. And then we'll go ahead and we'll also drag an isometric view out. And let's go ahead and drag this part up just so we can have more visibility with that. And then you can select specific ones and reduce their scale size. So I want this one to be much smaller. So I can fit it down in this little part right here. I'll probably do 1 to 3. Yeah. And then I'm also going to go ahead and change its shading or its orientation to shaded so I can see what it looks like. Go ahead and hit close. And then this one, I also am going to go ahead and just do visible edges. And then we can do some extra stuff to showcase everything on the body itself. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to do a detailed view because essentially I want to add like dimensions to all this stuff, but if I add dimensions to this and I try and also dimension this like cabin point where our conductor is going to sit in, it's just going to get really messy. So I'm going to go ahead and create a detailed view, and it basically allows us to zoom in on a specific point. So I'll just go ahead and do detailed view. I'll click probably this center point right here or around that center point, and I'll just draw out to about here. And then I can see that I take that point out, and I'm going to scale it to 1.5 probably will be a good size. And then I'll bring it here and click OK. And then we can see that we also have a logo for it, which is A, and it's indicating that this is the detailed view of this part right here. And then the other one that we'll want to learn about is creating a section view, which will basically, it can allow us to cut our object in half. And we'll do a section view so we can look at how this circle or the smokestack is placed. So I'll go ahead and do a section view, and I'll do here to here. Oops, sorry, section view. So I click the top, and then I'll click the side, and then I will want to go, it's being weird, so I have to, okay, and then I can click enter, and then it drags it out that cut that we just did, and it looks like it didn't quite capture all of it, so I want to make sure I hit every edge. So I need to make sure that I hit the very edges of it so I can get also the eye emboss. So now I'll drag this out and I'll just bring it to here for now, and then I will do just visible edges because I don't need to do hidden edges, and then I'll click OK, and I have it placed here, but I can also go ahead and there's a handy tool called rotate, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on this, and I will go ahead and rotate it. And I just want to rotate it 90 degrees. And go bring it up to here, do 90 here so it's easier. Just click OK, and now I have it rotated, and I'm going to go ahead and click the part here and move it out, and then I'll just make sure that the BB comes below it. And now I've done all my views for this part. So now we can just go ahead and start to do dimensions. And since we've already dimensioned a lot of this, it'll just automatically generate those dimensions. So in our case, we'll go ahead and we want to collect the length on this side of the length of the train to see how long our train is. And Fusion might be kind of slow with just how many things it's trying to model here. So you might have some issues with speed on some of this stuff. And go ahead and have this 145, and then go ahead and do the inner one, which is just 142. And then we'll also go ahead and get this top length, which is 108. And then just kind of try and grab all the dimensions you can that are relevant. So we want to do the height of our stuff, and we can go ahead and grab this point and drag it out a little bit more so it's actually visible and not our thing. And then since we have all dimensions, we can essentially just continue to dimension these things. And one thing that's really important in Fusion is we can add hole and thread notes, which is going to be important for this part of the model. So instead of having to type out what the specific hole and threading is, we can go ahead and click hole and thread note, and then we can select our specific hole right here, and it will go ahead and show that to the thing. So we'll just go ahead and do all of our holes on this side. Just click OK, and now we'll go ahead and drag these so that it makes it more readable. And then I'll just drag this one out to here. So now we have those all marked. And then we can do the same with the whole thread node here. And let's drag it out to here. We can see, okay. And then again, just try and capture all of the dimensions that you could possibly need. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and give the radius for this cylinder. We'll go ahead and move on to this one should be about organized. We'll give this internal radius, except for it made it pointed in a weird direction, so we'll just do it again. Select it, and then do here, and that should be a good label. And then we can also go ahead and do the dimension from here to here and get our 48. And then that should be good for this view. So the next thing we'll want to do is we want to create a center line because we want to find the center point here. So we'll just do select center line up here, and then we can select the two edges that we want the center line to be. And now that we have that, we can dimension how far back this line should be from the front. So I want to select the line itself. Yep. And then the point right here, we'll just put that dimension there. And then we'll also we'll zoom in real close. We'll grab this embossing detail right here, or the deboss. And then we can also grab the fillets right here. And should also probably get, and the thing you can do actually is if you click your dimensions, and the way that you drag it out will also change how it works. So if I drag it this way, it'll do 1.5, but sometimes, yeah, let's select this line here. It wants me to not select that line for some reason. There we go. So if I drag it this way, it'll do 2.12, which is the basically um, full length of the line, but if I want the distance, like our chamfer, which would be either way, I can pull it off to the side and it will change the distance depending on what angle I'm pulling it at. So in our case, I'll just do 1.5. And then the last thing I need to do on this section is do our section analysis right here. So this will be 26.5, and this distance will be 3.25. Actually, it's probably better to do on the other side. So I'll go ahead and get rid of this dimension and show it in case it's on this side, because it will just be more visible. And then we'll also get the depth that this goes down. So this one goes 2.5, and this one goes down 4. And then we should also capture these depths as well. So we want to grab this line, and we want to grab the depth between this part right here, except for, actually, we don't need to grab that one because we already have it whole dimensioned over on this side right here. So we don't need to grab that one. And we can get rid of this because we'll also go ahead and give these dimensions here. And then we can do the offset. Or we already grabbed the offset, so we don't have to do the offset. We can grab the lengths of these lines. And I'll just put this one here, and I'll reorientate this one over here. And then I will grab these distances here and here. And then that should be good for the distances between this. The other thing I want to do is we can do a center mark of our circle. And we want that so we can see how far between the center point and the edge is, so people can actually machine that point in if it needs to be machined. So we'll do 22.5. Let's drag this line up a little bit. And then we'll also go ahead and grab this dimension between this point and this edge right here and put it sit right there. And that should be good for our detailed view. And then we can go ahead and just grab, for this one, we'll want to grab the full size of our train, which will be 45. And then this base one, we have most of our dimensions. The only other thing that we need to grab would be something we'll do back here. And then here we just need to grab the height of our block I, which it's asking me for angles. So I'll just grab this distance first, and then I'll go ahead and I'll grab these 2 points here to get the actual height. And then that should be most of what we need. The only other thing we need to grab is the distance between these holes. So we'll go ahead and do more center marks for these lines. Make sure you can select it. There you go. And now we'll do the distance between this hole and this center mark, which is 52.5. And then also grab it again, and this one. And then grab distance between the front edge and this center mark. Okay. It's being very picky with my line, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that dimension first real quick, and then I should be able to grab it. And then I can come back and grab this. There we go. And now that should be everything that we need to grab for this specific one. So the last thing we want to do is give it some context. So we'll go ahead and double click on this and we'll label our part. So we'll say this is the train body. And then we'll define its scale. And in this document, the scale should be 1:1. So let's type in scale 1:1. And then just click enter. And then depending on if you're working for groups or things like that, you will have different document status, drawing numbers, approval dates, and things like that. But the most basic stuff is just giving some general information. And now that's the first drawing done. And now we can move on to the second one. So we'll go ahead and do a base view again. We'll go ahead and plant it. And we'll do 1:1 again. Actually, we'll do 2:1 this time because we're doing the body or the cabin body or the cabin itself. So that is a smaller size. So we can go ahead and click 2:1 probably. And then we'll do hidden with or visible with hidden edges. Click OK. And then we'll have to go ahead and toggle suppress all the other parts. And now that we've done that, we have our body itself. So we can go ahead and actually, since we're giving all of our parts different faces, we can just go ahead and do visible edges only. And then we'll go ahead and do projected views so we can get the rest of the drawings. And then here, and then we'll get the last one, which will be a projected view of this, which will be the back. Awesome. And then we'll also want to grab the base view, and we'll go ahead. Actually, we'll just do another projected view, and we'll do auxiliary view. And we have that. That's not the one we want, so we'll bring it down this way. That should be good. We'll go ahead and give this one shaded, and we'll go and descale it to, let's do 1:2. So we'll fit in our box, and we can drag it down here. So there we go. And now we can start to give some of this stuff dimensions, very similar to what we were doing before. Sizing. And then let's grab the difference between these two, and that should be the top view done. We'll do the side view here, and then we'll just grab, now that we have the side view, we'll just want to grab this part, this length, and then distances between here, and then here and here. So let's grab the other side just to make it cleaner lines. Here and here, and there we go. That should be our part. Since we just want to drag this, make sure we don't overlap with a lot of our stuff, make it look cleaner. There we go. And we already have this base dimension done with 42 up here. But if you want to add more clarification, you can always drag it down. And then we already have 44 labeled on these, and we don't have the top. We have the top length labeled up here. If you again want to add more clarification, you can. It's not necessary. And then for here, we'll just make sure we grab our distances here, the distances that we want to ensure, which is 10 here. And then we also need to grab this angle, which is 120. And then we'll just grab spacing. So grab here to here, and then we'll grab here to here. And that should be good enough for people to manufacture. And then for here, we can once again draw, we'll grab the radius of the arc. I think I accidentally dragged it off, so that's why I wanted to reassociate it. So we'll grab this one first for a quick test, or just to make sure people understand it. And then we'll grab this size here, and we'll grab this distance here. And then we'll grab the distance between these two. And then that should be good for people to manufacture that part. So that's our next part done. So we can go ahead and go into our title block, and we can go to training train cabin, and then we'll go ahead and enter our scale, which is 2:1, and then we'll finish that, and we can move on to our next part, which is the cabin top. So we'll go ahead and do base view. We'll stick with our 2:1 scale. We'll do visible edges, and then we can keep tangent edges and everything else the same. Hit OK. And then we'll go ahead and get rid of suppressing all the other features. Okay, and now that we have that, we can go ahead and start working on it. So we'll go ahead and do a projected view. So we'll drag the top part down. We'll also drag out the top, and then we'll do the side, and then we'll also grab our little isometric view. And we'll scale this one down to 1:1, 1:2. And then we'll also go ahead and change it to shaded. And then we'll make it probably 1:1.5. And drag it here. And now we can start to label everything else. So we'll just give distances here and here of our size. And then we'll want to grab here to here for this one. And then this length. These lengths should be the same, but just mark it. And then we'll grab this, and then we'll grab the distance between this and this, which will be lined up. So we can get rid of that one. And then the only thing we want to do here is to find these angles. And they should all be 45, so we just need to mark that one there, and then we'll also mark the distance between these two, which should be 90. And yeah, everything else in this drawing is marked. So actually, I'll get rid of this one and keep it here. And I'll also go ahead and dimension it on this side just in case. Yeah, that should be general points. Maybe we'll grab this one to here and mark it. And then this length to this one on this one. And then that should be, I'll just drag this to the other side so it's more clear. And then we can go ahead and make our properties in our title block, and we can go ahead and do training train cabin top. And then we'll do scale 2:1, hit enter, go ahead and finish properties. And then that's the cabin top complete. And then we'll go ahead and do another base view. Now we're going to do our smokestack, so we'll do 2:1 again. We will set it to visible edges. Click OK. Go open our browser again, suppress all the features other than the smokestack. There we go. Can back up our browser, can do a projected view, get the top, get the bottom. We don't need to do the side because it's already the same. It's basically the same thing. We'll go and scale this down to 1:1, and then make it a shaded view, and bring it into our body again. And then I will go ahead and before we start, I'll do another section view. So I'll start here, here, hit enter, drag it out so we can get some of this. Oops, I accidentally hit escape. And now we'll work with that section view when we get to it. So the next thing we need to do is add some dimensions. So we'll go ahead and get distance here, which is 19. Thanks, it's actually disassociated. So I'll just go ahead and delete that real quick, and I'll just redo it. Just grab this point to this. There we go. And then what we'll want to do for this block mostly is just grab angles. So we'll grab this interior one, and then we'll grab this interior one. So we'll grab this one here and this here, and then we'll drag it out here. And then we'll also grab this. No, we don't need to grab that diameter because we'll get it everywhere else. So we'll grab this outer diameter on the top, and we'll grab the inner diameter here, and then the hole. So then on the bottom, we basically just need to grab this one. And then for here, we'll just want to grab this length. So we'll grab this point to this point here. Grab the distance of this. And we'll also grab this inner distance right here. So here to here. And we can see that it's 2.03. So one thing that we can change, because we know from our file that it's actually not that amount. So we'll go ahead and go to our document settings. We'll double click it, or just go ahead and change document settings. And we can change our our units. And when we change our units, we can give a precision degree to. So in our case, we'll just go to 3 points instead. And angular precision, we can just keep to 2, and then select OK. And now we can see it in more detail. And then the last dimension I want is just this bottom one right here. And there we go. And that should be good for this smokestack. And then the last one we have to do is the wheel, which is the easiest one. So we'll go ahead to do 2 to 1. And then we'll go to OK. And then we'll suppress all of our features other than the wheel. And we only need to take one wheel. So can get rid of all the other ones. I just have this wheel, and one thing I did forget to do is I'll come back here and I need to do my properties. So I'll just do training train smokestack, and then I will go ahead and do scale 2 to 1, and then finish this one. So we'll go to projected view. We only need to project this view. And then we can go ahead and also get that isometric view. And I will go ahead and scale this one down and shade it. And this guy will be 1 to 1. And we'll go ahead and drag it in to our box here. And then we'll just get this dimension, and we'll get this dimension here. I'm not quite sure why it wants me to select the center point. There we go. And then we also have to grab this distance. And that should be good for all of our sheets. So we just need to make sure that we do the properties again on this one. Just do training train wheel. And then we'll do scale 2 to 1. We can go ahead and hit finish properties. And then we'll take a quick look through everything, make sure it all looks good. We have our scale. We have all of them labeled. Sometimes it'll weirdly glitch out in Fusion, but it looks good to me. It should just set back after a minute. And yeah, so hopefully after this course, you have a better understanding of just the basic drafting stuff. But now that this is the final one, you have a basic understanding of some of the features that we have in Fusion 360 to do basic modeling, assembly, and also do our drafting to send off to manufacturers. So I hope everyone that tagged along enjoyed the video series. And if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll get back to them. Thanks a lot for watching. We really enjoyed teaching you this.